Deputy Mike French's bodycam captured the scene at 2:40 a.m. on September 18, 2006. A body in the middle of Surrey Ridge Drive, a residential street in a quiet subdivision 20 miles south of Denver. The victim was naked, face down, an orange toe strap with a metal hook wrapped around the neck. The blood trail stretched behind the body, not droplets, a continuous wet trail painted down the center of the road. Deputy French followed it with his flashlight. It ran past driveways, past ranch-style homes on spacious lots. The trail disappeared into darkness toward Interstate 25. Officers secured the scene. The coroner arrived. The victim's face was too disfigured to identify visually. The skin was torn away. The skull fractured in multiple places. Forensic examination would later confirm the cause of death: asphyxiation from strangulation and massive blunt force trauma to the head. An employee identification card was not found. No wallet, no clothing, nothing to immediately reveal who this person was. Investigators walked the blood trail backward, 1 mile, then another half mile. The trail began at exit 191 off Interstate 25, a total distance of 1.3 miles. In a ditch near the beginning, they found evidence: car keys, a hair clasp, and a photograph. The photo showed a man and a woman together. The man's arm draped casually over her shoulder. It would take 3 days to identify the victim through fingerprints. Her name was Luz Maria Franco Fierros, 49 years old, a mother of 4 children in Mexico. She worked 2 jobs in the Denver area, one at a Taco Bell in Castle Rock, another at a different fast food restaurant. She'd come to Colorado from Chilpancingo, Mexico, 15 months earlier, with a plan: make money, build a better home for her family, open her own pozzoleria back home. She told friends she'd return by Christmas. Franco Fierros had been a neighborhood president in Chilpancingo in the 1990s. She led fights for water, electricity, paved streets. She raised money to build a chapel. People followed her because she moved them to cooperate. She opened her home and her heart to others. When she left for Colorado in May 2005, she told her friend Lydia Rodriguez Chino, "I leave you my children." Her 4 children, the youngest 17 years old, didn't know she was leaving. They woke up one day and their mother was gone. She called them regularly from Denver, sent money home, made plans for her return. She never made it home. The autopsy confirmed Franco Fierros died from strangulation and head injuries sustained from being dragged behind a vehicle. The coroner's office had difficulty finding enough intact skin to obtain fingerprints for identification. On the evening of September 17, 2006, Luz Maria Franco Fierros finished her shift at Taco Bell in Castle Rock. She was supposed to arrive home at their Glendale apartment around 9:00 p.m. She arrived at 1:02 a.m., 4 hours late. Her boyfriend, Jose Luis Rubinava, was waiting. He was 36 years, old, a construction worker, and landscaper. He had a wife and 2 sons back in Mexico. He'd been living in Colorado illegally, using forged documents, a fake social security number, and a fake permanent alien card to get work. Rubinava and Franco Fierros shared an apartment at 4390 Mississippi Avenue in Glendale with a roommate, Jose Sanchez. Neighbors occasionally saw the couple together. One neighbor remembered Rubinava as friendly and courteous. Another said he would stare so long it made her uncomfortable. "Just staring is creepy," she said. "It was his eyes. He just looks lost to me." When Franco Fierros came home 4 hours late that night, Rubinava confronted her. He accused her of seeing another man. They argued. According to his later confession, the argument escalated. Franco Fierros cursed his mother in vulgar language. He slapped her. She told him, "You're worthless as a man. That's why I have other men." Rubinava would later tell investigators he'd beaten Franco Fierros 10 times during their relationship. This night would be different. Around 1:30 a.m., Franco Fierros woke Rubinava to continue the argument. He suggested they get in his car, a green 2-door Saturn, to clear their thoughts. The fight continued in the vehicle. Franco Fierros became hysterical. Rubinava drove to Interstate 25. He took exit 191 towards Surrey Ridge, a quiet subdivision in North Douglas County. He chose the location randomly. It was isolated, dark, no witnesses. In a secluded area, they got out of the car. Ruby Nava had a ratchet tie-down strap in his vehicle, a 10-foot orange strap with a metal hook on one end. He pulled it out. He whipped Franco Fierro's with it. The hook left a hook-shaped bruise on her torso. Franco Fierro's became hysterical. She said she was afraid of the dark. Ruby Nava told investigators he intended to leave her on the side of the road, to scare her, but then he wrapped the strap around her neck like a noose. According to his confession, he told her, "If you want death, here it is." Then he said, "Go ahead, call for help. No one will hear you." Franco Fierro's was still alive when he got back in the car. Ruby Nava claimed he thought she would remove the noose before he drove away. He called it an accident. He drove away without looking back. He drove 3 to 4 miles without stopping. He never checked his rearview mirror. He passed a truck on Surrey Ridge Drive and sped up. The driver of that truck, a Surrey Ridge resident towing a trailer, saw something dragging behind the Saturn. At first, he thought it was a blanket. Then he saw blood. He tried to follow the vehicle. He attempted to turn his large truck and trailer to cut the car off by taking a side street. He lost sight of it. The resident followed the wet trail on foot. At 2:39 a.m., he called 911. By the time deputies arrived, Franco Fierro's had been dragged 1.3 miles. Forensic analysis of the blood trail indicated her body was airborne at times, bouncing off the pavement as the vehicle accelerated. The strap never broke. It held tight around her neck for the entire distance. Ruby Nava abandoned his Saturn near 6th Avenue and Havana Street in Aurora. He left the photo of himself and his wife from Mexico in a ditch near where the dragging began. He also left Franco Fierro's car keys and hair clasp. Then, he went home. Deputies cordoned off Surrey Ridge Drive as the sun rose on September 18th. Crime scene technicians began documenting the blood trail. They photographed every section. They measured the distance. They collected samples. Highway crews would later spread fresh tar over the roads to cover the blood, but residents said it still showed through in places for days. The photograph found near the beginning of the trail became the first major lead. It showed a man and a woman. The man had his arm draped over the woman's shoulder. Investigators released the photo to local media outlets. The flood of tips began immediately. Multiple callers recognized the man in the photo. Some identified him as Jose Luis Ruby Nava, a landscaper and construction worker who lived in Glendale. Others provided his address, 4392 Mississippi Avenue, apartment 204. On September 19th, less than 48 hours after the body was discovered, Ruby Nava's employer called the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. The employer had seen the photo on television. Then Ruby Nava called him asking for advice about whether he should flee to Mexico. Ruby Nava told his employer his car and girlfriend were missing. He needed his paycheck to pay for an attorney. Deputies moved quickly. They tracked Ruby Nava to Douglas County and arrested him that evening. During the initial interview, Ruby Nava told Detective Mike French he had mucho problemos, many problems. He claimed his car and girlfriend had been missing for 2 days. Then, investigators showed him the photograph found at the scene, the one of him and his wife in Mexico. CBI agent Larry Brown conducted a formal interrogation. Brown was fluent in Spanish. Ruby Nava initially appeared relaxed and conversational. As the interview progressed, he went into a closed posture. He began pulling at the hair on his arm nervously. Brown showed him evidence: the photograph, the blood trail documentation, the location where his Saturn was found abandoned near Aurora. Ruby Nava confessed. He told Brown about the argument, about taking Franco Fierro's to Surrey Ridge, about the tie-down strap, about putting it around her neck and driving away. He admitted he'd driven 3 to 4 miles without stopping, without looking back. He wrote a confession in Spanish. Gracias, somos culpables. Thank you, we are guilty. In a bizarre twist, Ruby Nava claimed he believed if he didn't kill Franco Fierro's, she and their roommate Jose Sanchez would kill him. He told investigators Sanchez followed them to Surrey Ridge, drove past the body, and left the photo to frame him. Investigators checked Sanchez's alibi. He'd clocked into work at a Safeway in Castle Pines at 1:58 a.m. on September 18th. He clocked out 8 hours later. He was cleared. After his arrest, Ruby Nava led investigators to his Saturn. It was parked near 6th Avenue and Havana Street in Aurora. The car had marks on its undercarriage consistent with dragging something heavy with a tow strap. No other forensic evidence was recovered from inside the vehicle. The case was solved. The evidence was overwhelming. The confession was detailed and corroborated by physical evidence, but prosecutors faced a complication. Ruby Nava's defense attorneys began claiming he was mentally retarded. Under Colorado law, executing someone with mental retardation was prohibited. The defense sought to have him declared ineligible for the death penalty. For more than a year, the case was mired in legal proceedings. Prosecutors wanted the death penalty. Defense attorneys argued Ruby Nava's mental capacity made him ineligible for execution. In March 2007, Ruby Nava was arraigned on formal charges: first-degree murder, second-degree kidnapping, and 2 counts of forgery for the fake documents he'd used to work illegally. District Attorney Carol Chambers had 30 days to decide whether to seek the death penalty. She announced she would pursue it. The defense filed for a mental retardation evaluation. The Colorado Mental Health Institute examined Ruby Nava. In January 2008, a state mental health doctor testified that Ruby Nava was not mentally retarded. The doctor noted Ruby Nava had decent communication skills, could follow instructions, and could solve simple math problems. A defense psychologist disagreed. The legal battle continued through the spring and summer of 2007. On July 18, 2007, Judge Paul King rendered his decision on the mental retardation claim. He ruled against the defense. Ruby Nava was competent to stand trial and eligible for the death penalty. The order was sealed by the court. The prosecution moved forward with the capital case. Then, in early January 2008, everything changed. Ruby Nava's defense team approached prosecutors with a request. They wanted a plea deal. They would admit guilt in exchange for a life sentence without parole. Prosecutors considered the offer. They evaluated the strength of their case. The evidence was overwhelming. The confession was damning. But securing a unanimous jury verdict of death in Colorado was expensive and uncertain. The trial could take years. Appeals could stretch for decades. District Attorney Carol Chambers consulted with Franco Fierro's family in Mexico. She explained the options. The family wanted justice. They wanted closure. They wanted the case to end. Chambers accepted the plea deal. She gave Ruby Nava a limited opportunity to confess responsibility for his heinous crime. On February 19, 2009, 2 days after what would have been Franco Fierro's 51st birthday, Jose Luis Ruby Nava appeared in Douglas County District Court. Jose Luis Ruby Nava was 38 years old when he stood before Judge Paul King for his plea hearing. He wore an orange jail uniform. He listened through an interpreter via headset. Ruby Nava had been held without bail at the Douglas County Detention Center since his arrest in September 2006. For 2.5 years, he'd maintained his innocence despite his written confession. His defense team had spent months arguing he was mentally retarded and ineligible for execution. Now, facing the possibility of a death penalty trial, he was ready to admit the truth. Judge King asked him a series of questions to ensure he understood the plea agreement. Ruby Nava answered through the interpreter. King asked if he was mentally retarded. Ruby Nava initially answered, "I don't know." His attorneys huddled with him. After a moment of private discussion, Ruby Nava revised his answer. He confirmed he was not mentally retarded. He was competent to enter the plea. One of Franco Fierro's daughters, Blanca Anel Leyva Franco, listened to the proceedings by phone from her home in Chilpancingo, Mexico. She was the only family member who participated in the hearing. Her mother's body had been returned to Mexico for burial in October 2006. The family had held a funeral. They'd mourned, but they'd had no closure. Before Judge King imposed the sentence, Blanca addressed the court through an interpreter. Her voice was steady, measured. "What my mother taught us was we really are nobody to decide what happens to other people's lives," she said. "We just want you to apply the law and do what the law requires so it doesn't happen to anybody else." Prosecutor Leslie Hansen addressed the court. She described the barbaric nature of the crime, the jealousy that motivated Ruby Nava, the noose he fashioned from a tie-down strap, The deliberate act of dragging Franco Fierros behind his vehicle for more than a mile while she was still alive. This was a barbaric act of murder, Hansen said. Ruby Nava sat stoically. He refused to comment. He offered no apology to the family, no explanation for his actions. Judge Paul King accepted the plea. He immediately sentenced Jose Luis Ruby Nava to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Under the terms of the agreement, the kidnapping and forgery charges were dropped. Ruby Nava was ordered to pay $9,276 in restitution to Franco Fierro's family. He was also required to pay $91,000 in prosecution costs. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement placed a detainer on Ruby Nava. If he ever became eligible for release, which he wouldn't, he would be deported to Mexico. Ruby Nava was transported to a Colorado Department of Corrections facility. He would spend the rest of his life there. Jose Luis Ruby Nava is currently serving life without parole at a Colorado state prison. He is 56 years old. He will die in prison. The photograph he left at the scene, the one showing him with his wife in Mexico, was entered into evidence at trial. It showed a different man. A man with his arm around a woman, smiling, at peace. That man no longer exists. In Chilpancingo, Mexico, Franco Fierros' 4 children gathered for their mother's 51st birthday on February 17, 2009. They held a party in her memory. 2 days later, Ruby Nava pleaded guilty. Franco Fierros' neighbors in Chilpancingo erected a memorial. For 11 days after her death, more than 20 friends and family members gathered each night under a sheet metal roof. They recited the rosary. They sang prayers. Madre mía, tú estás en el cielo, they sang. Mother of mine, you are in heaven. Franco Fierros had been a celebrity in her neighborhood. A leader, a fighter for water, electricity, paved streets. She'd raise money to build a small chapel. She was a worker, and she made people want to join her. Neighbor Maria de Jesus Chavez said. She'd left for Colorado with a dream, to build a better home, to open her own pozoleria, to return by Christmas. Her children never knew she was leaving. She told her friend to watch over them. I leave you my children, she'd said. She returned in a coffin 2 weeks after her death. In Surrey Ridge, Colorado, residents placed a cross adorned with flowers and an angel near the spot where Franco Fierro's body was found. It just tugs at your heart that she died such a horrific death, neighbor Sandyberg said. She certainly deserves that and more. The blood trail has long since been covered by fresh tar. The homes in Surrey Ridge remain quiet. Life goes on. But the 1.3-mile stretch of pavement from Interstate 25 to Surrey Ridge Drive will always mark the path where Luz Maria Franco Fierros died, where a man who claimed to love her dragged her behind his car until she stopped breathing. Franco Fierros was 49 years old, a mother of 4, a neighborhood leader, a woman with a dream of building something better for her family. She left Mexico to make money in America. She worked 2 jobs. She sent money home. She made plans to return. Ruby Nava made sure she never would.